We are back live on our big 50th edition of Johnny Torch Live. Welcome into the show. Today we're going to do the only way to spend your Saturday with This Week in Comic Book Television. Yes, we're going to take a look at all the shows that were on this past week, including Macgyver. We have Murdoc's triumphant return, Michael Des Barres in his triumphant return to the character that he made iconic. We also have, of course, the CW shows, Arrow, The Flash, Black Lightning, and Supergirl in the works. And we also have Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which is wrapping up, so to speak, for the month, and will not be seen again until the Winter Olympics are finite, or whatever. All right, anyhow, thanks for joining us. And first order of business, I want to say a very belated Happy Groundhog Day to everyone. We saw, or I should say, the groundhog saw his shadow, meaning another 6 weeks of winter. So thank you for that. I actually thought he wasn't going to see it because he sees his shadow practically every year. And I said, well, this year he's going to throw us for a loop. He's not going to see his shadow. But that's not the case. He saw it, and so now 6 more weeks of winter. And boy, oh boy, can I feel it. All right, we've also have the poll of the week question. The poll of the week question for last week was a double question, one for the guys, one for the gals. I kind of set it up wrong so that the guys' question lasted an extra day than the gals, but the gals really responded well to this question, by the way. I've got 94 votes for this question, and that's one of the probably top three poll responses I've gotten in the top three. I think I got only more votes on one other category. I forget what it was. It was a Star Wars question, and that got a big response. But this one got a big response. So we got 94 people voting, and the question was: suppose you lived in Riverdale. Which of these Archie comic hunks would you want to date the most? And of course, the nominees were Archie, Jughead, Kevin Keller, or Reggie Mantle. In fourth place, with 11% of the vote, Kevin Keller. Casey Cott's Kevin Keller. He actually started off a little bit stronger than that. He was in third place for the longest time, but unfortunately, somebody has to have the last place spot, and so Kevin is last. In third place, with 13% of the vote, Charles Melton's Reggie Mantle. Reggie, that practical jokester. I haven't seen this season yet, so this is a new actor for Reggie. I don't know how he's doing at all. The first Reggie actor was almost non-existent last season. If I remember correctly, he was kind of a jerk. Um, Not Chuck Clayton bad, but he was more antagonistic, like violently, than he was being a lovable jerk. You know what I mean? That's Reggie's character has always been a lovable jerk, practical joker. He was never really a character that was like gonna, bash your head in. He was more afraid of Moose than anything, because he was always trying to get Midge on the side. All right, in second place with 22% of the vote, we have KJ Appa's Archie Andrews. Yes, the namesake of Archie Comics comes in second in his own TV show, Riverdale. Kind of hard to believe. What does KJ stand for anyway? I always wondered that, and I never asked the guy. I don't know if he's ever made it public. And in first place, with an overwhelming majority, over half the vote, 54% of the vote went to Cole Sprouse's Jughead Jones. So, a little round of applause to Jughead and Cole Sprouse, because, you know, if you would have told me years ago when I was a kid reading Archie comics that Jughead Jones was going to be a heartthrob to millions, I would have said you were certifiably insane. But it's all due to Cole Sprouse's portrayal. That's what the girls are into, as they say. All right, so we've got one more day before. Actually, it says here 17 hours if you want to vote in the guys' version of the poll. What Riverdale hottie would you want to date the most if you lived in Riverdale? Riverdale. This, of course, probably not going to change very much, so I might as well give you just uh, what the results are now so far, but before it's official, because this is probably not going to change. With 59 votes, we have in fourth place Josie from Josie and the Pussycats. In third place, with 14% of the vote, Cheryl Blossom. In second place, putting on a game effort but coming up short, Betty Cooper, Lily Reinhart with 36% of the vote. And in first place, Camila Mendez with 41% of the vote as Veronica Lodge. That is the comic hottie most of you guys out there would want to date the most had you lived in Riverdale. So, again, that's you still got some time to vote on that one if you want to. If you're listening to this live, which I'm sure nobody is, go to my Twitter page and check it out. You should still be able to find it because, again, these polls are pretty popular considering. Also, we got a new poll up here, but first off, congratulations, of course, to Veronica for winning that poll. Okay, let's see. The poll for this week, let's take a look. As usual, I am doing two laptops at one time, and that is why it's taking me a moment to reach over my shoulder to get the other laptop. All right, here in this case, this week's poll of the week question we have: what is your favorite role Katie Cassidy has played on Arrow? Now, she hasn't just played one character, believe it or not, even though it seems like it. The choices are the pre-Black Canary Laurel Lance, seasons 1 and 2. That was almost like a different character, really. Uh, Second position here we have Black Canary seasons 3 and 4, when she was officially Black Canary. In third choice here we have Black Siren, which originated on The Flash. She's an Earth 2 doppelganger that found her way here to Earth 1 and is now working for Caden James over on Arrow. We're going to talk more about Arrow, of course, later on tonight. But so far, the way it's lining up, it's a very close competitive race between Black Canary and Black Siren. Black Siren was leading early on, but Black Canary is now taking first place with 45% of the vote. Black Siren holding on to second place with 29% of the vote. And Laurel Lance, just the assistant DA Laurel, with 26% of the vote in third place. 47 votes cast so far, which, again, that's also pretty good considering this is the first day. The poll will run all week, of course. And like I said, head over to the comments below, and in the description, you'll find the link to my Twitter page so that you can vote in this week's poll of the week. All right, so with that business out of the way, thank you for joining me, and we have a little segment that I like to call Johnny's NFL Football Picks of the Week. Yes, it is the Super Bowl edition of Johnny's NFL Football Picks of the Week. And we have up here, right before your very eyes, Super Bowl 52, the Patriots versus the Eagles. This sounds like a good one, huh? I think it's going to be a knockdown, drag-out affair. Not going to be an easy one for the Patriots, but then again, they never really are they? Can you think when was the last time we had a really easy time in the Super Bowl? I don't think there was one. Gee, they all came down to nail biters, I'm pretty sure. Um, but anyway, so my pick, of course, is going to be the New England Patriots. It's not just being a hometown favorite that's prompting this decision, but you can't argue at results. If last Super Bowl didn't teach you anything, I don't know what to tell you. The score, they came back and won being down 28-3, and they still managed to come back in the second half and win the game. Everybody counted them out, even to my own Admission, I thought that the game was over in the third quarter, but they managed to claw their way back in because these guys are the real deal. Tom Brady's playing the best he's played, and the guy's 40 years old. I mean, come on. And he can probably go on for another 6, 7, 8 years too. This is probably not going to be their last Super Bowl, and I definitely don't think it's going to be the last Super Bowl win. Uh, I'm predicting 7 or 8 wins before they pack it in, and it could be even more than that. But I am going to go Patriots over the Eagles with a score of, get ready for this now, drum roll please. Patriots 34, Eagles 28. Yes, in case you are thinking you misheard that, that is the exact same score the Patriots won the Super Bowl last year when they beat the Atlanta Falcons. I don't think it's going to be another one of those lopsided performances where they just are completely down by, 3 touchdowns or something, but I do think that they're probably going to be behind. That little light's going to go off in Tom Brady's head and Bill Belichick's. They're going to pull it together. They're going to get it done in the last quarter like they always do and seal the deal in a close one. But like I said, I don't think it's going to be a lopsided contest where it's going to be, one team's going to dominate for half the game. It's going to be close. All right. So if you are at all interested in the Super Bowl, let me know what you think in the comments below. And next week we'll have our final segment here that will wrap up our Johnny's NFL Football Picks of the Week season when I run down exactly what my final score was this year, because you heard me for most weeks. I think I skipped 1 week when it was Christmas or something. Most weeks I gave you my picks, and let's see how I did at the end of the year. All right, so that's it for Johnny's NFL Football Picks of the Week. And now on to This Week in Comic Book Television. Got quite a few things here to look at. Let's start with how's about Supergirl? Let's start with Supergirl for a change because basically my notes were ready for Supergirl, so we'll start with Supergirl. All right, the show started off here. We had a little conversation about the Kryptonians and why Rain is apparently not a full-blood Kryptonian. We learned last week that the kryptonite doesn't really affect her. Her DNA must be mixed up a little bit with something else. I'm not exactly sure what they did there, but those Kryptonian witches did something that concocted her in this manner. They still really haven't explained too much about her background, Sam. What was she found in a field or something? I don't know, because we know from seeing her being sent here, and she landed in the fields the same way Supergirl did, pretty much. I don't know why she doesn't have the same powers, but we'll learn that, I suppose, before too long. They try to give us some unconclusive examinations of her powers in this one. I don't know. So Superman killed General Zod in this timeline on this Earth. Apparently, Superman kills General Zod in every timeline on every Earth. Kind of strange that they decided to go there. I don't know. I mean, we had Non on the show. We didn't have Ursa, although we did have the Ursa actress. But so I don't know. I don't think we're going to see General Zod anytime soon on the show. I'm kind of disappointed in that, but so the subplot pretty much is, let's get that done because I was talking about that in regards to this, but Alex gives Sam tests, and apparently Alex is a doctor now all of a sudden. She got her med school training or something and just put it to the side in order to be a party girl, I guess, because that's what she was originally, and then became a DEO officer when Jean Jones found her. If I can remember the first season correctly, I don't think they even really have looked at that season since it aired. Going back over that storyline, I kind of like the way they're building up this friendship between the four of them because it's the Sisterhood of the Traveling Cape or something. You know, they got this kind of girls' club vibe going there or something. And I honestly don't have a problem with that because it's interesting to see how these four, with the exception of Kara and Alex, who are of course siblings, but these four are going to go off into very different directions at some point. And I think this just cements how painful that's going to feel once they actually do go their way. Rain, Sam, I don't know exactly what's going to become of her. The rumor being that she's possibly going to die off and Alex is going to adopt Ruby because Alex, of course, wants to have kids, and that's what led to this whole Maggie incident. Which, of course, as I said before, can't have an episode without Maggie being mentioned by Alex. Maggie is mentioned by Alex again in this episode. Oh, man, am I tired of hearing about Maggie, but they're relentlessly going to drive that into the ground. So, yeah, I don't know exactly what the fate will be of Rain. I don't want to see her get killed, to be honest with you. I like this actress, Annabelle. What's her name? Odette Annabelle. She plays a very genuine single mom kind of role here. I think she's playing it very authentically, and I liked what she's done so far. I kind of don't want to see her get killed off, but it is interesting to see what are they going to do with her. Like, for instance, her powers seem to come and go. Maggie, oh, heaven forbid. No, Alex is giving her tests with an injection, drawing blood and stuff, and apparently now Sam can have her skin penetrated with a needle. Before she was getting shot and it didn't affect her at all. Bullets would bounce off her. It's one of those age-old problems I think CW has where they don't really write the story in advance. They kind of put down a couple of routes and then they just improvise as they go on, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I frankly do the same things when I'm writing. I basically when I write, I have like touchstones. I have an idea of how the story will begin. I have an idea how the story will end, and then will put one or two set pieces or dialogue scenes that I know need to go there in the middle. And then you sort of just try to connect the dots and say, all right, in order to get there, we got to do this. In order to get there, we got to do this. But with the CW shows, they don't really have even that much uh, construct to work with. They seem to like just place down an idea and then later on they'll go back on it and say, well, did we say she's invulnerable? Well, there's got to be a reason for that she's not now, but we'll give you an explanation when we can come up with it. And they don't do that just with Supergirl, lest anybody think I'm just picking on Supergirl. I mean, they've done that with Arrow in the past dreadfully. They kind of am doing with that with Flash now in this season, I think. They kind of are doing that. Anyway, and we know Lena, of course, is going to go off and probably become a villainess, which is very difficult to see the way they continually are pulling her away from that life. So that either they're going to subvert our expectations and they'll eventually have nothing for Lena to play, or they are going to do a traumatic incident that's going to set her off to the dark side because they really haven't let her. They kind of had that one moment where they had her, as they even mentioned in this episode, where they had her confront Morgan Edge with a gun. But since then, they really keep pulling back on. This is like the third time I think she's come in contact with her mother, and of course, her mother's like the scum of the earth, and you know, Lena keeps rebuffing her attempts to try to lure her over to her side. So I don't really know how they're going to go about that because it's certainly not going to be just over Kara was keeping secrets from her, being Supergirl. I don't think that's enough to send her to the dark side. And if they do that at this point, that's pretty sad that that's all they could come up with. But like I said, the way she pretty much rebukes her mother and quote unquote does the right thing in this episode, I don't really see how they're going to turn her. And if they don't turn her, what does she have left in the story? Just to be, the Jimmy Olsen relationship, continuing to linger that on. All right, so the Jimmy and Lena relationship is still a thing, apparently, here. Um, Morgan Edge shows up after being absent for several weeks to be the token rich conservative chauvinist, blah, 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 rich white man. Really, who needs this? I mean, I don't even want to see him come back anymore because it's all they play is this. Oh, aren't we clever? He's like Trump, and all men are pigs, and oh, gee. I mean, that's the problem with this show is they still come back to the well for that. Thankfully, we don't really have that on Flash, and I don't think we really have that on Arrow. There's not these huge message SJW threads that we always got to keep coming back to. I don't know. I don't get it. I don't know who do they think they're entertaining with this kind of pablum. I don't know. I imagine that they think they're preaching to the choir. Maybe I don't know. Anyhow, so the storyline here, in a nutshell, Edge escapes his hijacked car because it's been remote control hijacked. He accuses Lena very publicly, although I think it was Mama Luthor there that actually was responsible for all this, even though it just causes him to have this vendetta against Lena. But the thing is it's sort of a chasing your tail thing here, where Mama Luthor wants to get rid of Morgan Edge because he affronted Lena in the past. But then again, now he's coming out with both barrels blazing against Lena, and she just basically made things worse for Lena. I don't really know. I don't know how this works. So anyhow, Lena's poisoned. Jimmy goes after the guy, but he's sniped dead. Kara flies her back to the DEO in her civilian guise, and that leads to like a funny moment where she's like, "I had a dream you were flying," one of those things. Kara uses her freezing breath to save her. I don't know how that works. Apparently, well, at least Alex knew how it worked. uh, we got the picture up here of the Guardian because I wanted to point that out. I guess this is a new costume for the Guardian. Jimmy's back as the Guardian. What it took to bring him back, as I guess, was Lena's life in danger because for whatever reason they just dropped this character. I guess we can't have a heroic male figure on the show. Apparently, that's what it is because Mon-El's been hanging in the background. He hasn't been doing anything proactive. Uh, Jimmy just dropped the Guardian role, even though he was gung ho for it last season. I thought that was some of the best work that both um, Win and Jimmy had was doing that subplot. I don't know why they dropped it. Otherwise, other than just the whole we have to focus on women. This is the woman's show. This is, as I said in the I think I said on Twitter, but basically that's kind of what it is. It's like you have to have them segregated as sort of, Supergirl is the woman's show, the feminist show. Black Lightning is the Black Lives Matter show. I mean, you really don't want to push on that way too strongly because then people who are not interested in the SJW message are going to tune out and the show is going to suffer and it's going to go downhill in the ratings. All right, so yeah, Guardian goes after Morgan Edge and threatens him in Batman style, which was kind of cool. Martian Manhunter gives Kara a pep talk. Like I said, with more ideologue message of why are people acting the way they do today? Everybody hates each other and everybody's going after everybody else and this and that. Why can't we just focus on you know the criminal mastermind plot to take over the world? It's like even last season we had that. We don't even have that this season. You know, who is Rain really, intimidating? She came and showed up like one episode, and now she's back gone again, and we're still doing this little flights of fancy with Morgan Edge and these little, I don't know, no name villains. I mean, can you name any of the villains this season? There was that crazy fanatic guy. It doesn't even count. I mean, Sai was like a villain for 1 week, and then she's like returns as a frenemy, kind of. There's just no memorable villains. There's no memorable action, and there's no memorable fights for Supergirl in the season so far. We're gonna get to that in a moment. The one memorable thing in this episode. But anyhow, to wrap it up, we have Lena tracks the assassin's disappearing bullet to Mama Luthor. She tries to tempt her to the dark side. Of course, it fails. Lena wants Kara's help in saving Edge from Mama Luthor, and so they go to this club where uh, Morgan is having some fundraiser or something. And another interesting SJW scene we have Kara's trying to get past the doorman, the village bouncer. And she pulls the old Lois Lane thing. Oh, I'm a reporter, and whatever, waves the badge or something. I think, and she tries to get past him, and he like grabs her arm and says, "Wait a minute, you can't get in there. I'm sorry." And she like, I don't know, elbows him in the gut and knocks him out, pretty much right in front of people, which you know really isn't a smart thing for your secret identity when you're gonna knock out a guy that's like 3 times your size in public if you're trying to keep your identity secret. And she says something like, "Oh, don't tell women," or something like that. And again, this is kind of beating us over the head with a message. You know what I mean? We don't really need this in the show. We don't need the virtue singling. You know what I mean? We everybody at home, I'm sure, knows right from wrong. Whether they're going to do right and not wrong is another thing. But these kind of virtue singling moments don't land. They don't mean anything. It just feels like, like I said, preaching to the choir, where I guess some feminist in Wisconsin is going to pump their fist at this or something. I don't know. I mean, it doesn't do anything for the narrative. It doesn't really do anything for the story. I don't know why you want to keep peppering the show with these kind of. This doesn't necessarily ruin the whole episode, but I mean, when you have enough of these things showing up like every 10 minutes or something, there's another one of these little virtue signaling moments, you're going to turn people off. All right, so Lena wants Edge to confess, which is another strange moment. A drone is going to attack, and she knows it, and she warns him of it, but she says to confess in order for the drone to be called off. Now, this kind of looks like she's in cahoots. This doesn't really play too well for her. Eventually, he confesses, like the coward that he is, and so on and so forth. Uh, and the show ends with Mama Luthor in the Lexor suit. This is the famous suit that we've seen Lex Luthor wear in the comics, where he's got the green armor and the chest piece that lights up and everything. And I thought this was actually pretty cool because we've got a season here where not a whole lot of action has been taking place. There hasn't been really a whole lot of action. Not too many memorable scenes anyway. I'm always complimenting Arrow because Arrow really does a good job on their action scenes. They really don't give Supergirl enough action scenes, but in this case, they actually have her helped by Mon-El, which, credit where due, is a very un-SJW thing to do because obviously he needed to help her because Mama Luthor's got kryptonite, and Supergirl ain't gonna stand a chance against kryptonite without a little help. So that was a nice touch, and that was the best scene in the episode. Of course, the like I said, season needs a few more of those scenes. Hopefully, there's more in the future. So it seems like they kind of patched things up between Mama Luthor and Alina. I like this actress that plays Mama Luthor. She got that gleam in her eyes, like Gene Hackman, where she knows what she's doing is like crazy evil, but she still has got that humor about her. And I think they might have picked her for that. A female Gene Hackman that might have that gleam in their eye whenever they're contemplating doing something terrible. So I like this actress. I think she's really good, and she's grown on me more and more the more she's returned. Now, apparently, I held out hope they might actually put Lex in the show. But I think the reason why Lex and Lois Lane, for that matter, are not in the show is because they are, as I said in my last Torch News Roundup, planning this Metropolis series that is going to focus on Lois Lane and Lex Luthor, apparently. So chances of us seeing them cross over here is probably not that good. I would like to see it happen, maybe use the same actors, and of course, one is a prequel series, and the other one is current day. But to have maybe the actors cross over would be fun and a way to maybe garner some interest in the Metropolis show because I don't really know who would be interested in a Metropolis show without Superman. All right, let's just wrap this up here. We went pretty long on this one, I think, but I'm gonna give Supergirl this week. I'm gonna give it 3.5 stars out of 5. I would probably give it a little bit more, but Supergirl really wasn't in costume too much. I think she had like a brief moment in the beginning of the show, but then she doesn't turn to Supergirl again until the very end. So my barometer has always been if it's a superhero show, got to show the superhero in costume more than once. Like I said, technically, I think it was twice, but she really didn't do anything but stand there. So, excuse me, I'm a little tired today as well. So hopefully this broadcast is not going to drag too much. But all right, so that is Supergirl for this week. Hopefully they do a little bit better in the future. I'm doing the show live. This is the first time I feel a little tired and a little dragging with the show, and I'm doing it live. But I never get any views when I do the show recorded. The past 2 weeks, I haven't got any views. So I already seen there was one person watching during the Supergirl portion of our show. So maybe I'll pick up a couple more interested viewers just by doing it live. Let's hope, anyway. All right, so we're working backwards here. It looks like. Let me see. I've got Agents of Shield up next on my notes. So let's take a look at Agents of Shield. This is kind of a blurry picture, but that's the best I could find of Kasius going nuts. And trust me, he went nuts in this episode. He was nutsy cuckoo. All right, so been a good season of Agents of Shield. I really enjoyed this season. Like I said, a few episodes at the beginning that kind of needed just to establish what was going on, but a pretty good, darn good episode. A pretty darn good season, I mean. And this episode tonight was yesterday was a very good episode. Kasius finds Sonara's body, dead body, of course, because she was killed by Quake in the last episode. And he does some, psycho conversations with her that he's, you know, trying to, I think, bolster his courage by talking to her because she was clearly more brave than he was. But without her, now he's got to depend on himself. So first he tries to turn some human dude into like a Kree warrior by giving him the drops of ecstasy. I don't know what the heck that was. The drops of bliss. And apparently this will give temporary powers to anyone who takes it. Makes them spit out black goo like the Penguin in Batman Returns. And causes eye discharges that are black as well. uh, See your doctor if you have any of these symptoms. But so he sends this guy, and of course, the temporary powers eventually will kill you, and that's what you get out of this. Is I guess apparently your heart will burst, but you get to go out in a blaze of glory. So he tries this out, this old Kree family recipe on this mook who's just happened to be hanging around. I don't remember who he was. Was he somebody important? Somebody tell me in the comments. Was that guy important that he grabbed that mokes that was just hanging around? I don't know. So uh he turns him into some kind of a Kree warrior. Meanwhile, Yo-Yo and Tess go out looking to help some more civilians. Flint and Mac work on the time machine with Fitzsimmons. Coulson, May, Quake, and Deke rescue Inhumans from the Kree. Uh, Daisy kills the warrior guy that Kasius sends after him. Nice little brief fight scene with Coulson. I want to see him get into some more action. The guy's not getting enough action, if you ask me. I like to see him get some more action. You know what I mean? All right, so to make a long story short, Tess flies everyone to safety. Flint goes off with Tess, and Yo-Yo ends up running into herself, her limbless self, well, her armless self. I guess she's got legs. I didn't understand why they didn't amputate her legs if they were afraid that, since she has powers to run very fast, you think that'd be the first thing they'd amputate, not her arms. But, for the big finish where they had Kasius, holding her over the balcony or whatever. He didn't want to just have a torso there. So anyway, this is probably the most poignant part of the show was Yo-Yo's future self is still alive. Apparently, she's the only one. I don't see anybody else. And she said that they're destined to be in a loop for all time, and that Mac dies, and that Coulson is dying, and they need to let him die. Otherwise, the loop will continue on. This is setting up some interesting stuff because they're trying to intimate that either Coulson or Daisy has to die or stay behind or something in order to change the future. Otherwise, this loop has gone on several times and is going to continue to go on, and the same outcome is going to happen. So that kind of puts an interesting spin on things because obviously we don't want Coulson to die and we don't want Daisy to die, and something has to give here. Meanwhile, Enoch gets discovered, and Deke goes off to help him. And Fitz decapitates some Kree in a very graphic scene that was pretty cool. So Daisy doesn't want to leave, and she wants to stay there, even though, like I said last week, she's got the implant where her powers are not working. And she still doesn't think that's a safety valve enough to go back in the past because she'll eventually get her powers back. And can they risk it? So Coulson stuns her with the icer, puts her on ice, and carries her away in a nice heroic fashion. Enoch gets slashed by a Kree, but Deke saves him. Meanwhile, Kasius kills the future Yo-Yo in front of Mac and drinks the cuckoo juice that will kill him in a blaze of glory, as he did with the other Mokes that we just saw a few minutes ago. So Mac and Kasius have this spectacular brawl. It's a great brawl. I thought it was great. I really enjoyed seeing some action with them too. Didn't really expect Kasius to get there. I thought he was just going to be a, prima donna and wasn't going to get his hands dirty or anything. But I think his plan, such as it was that if he dies, he's going to prevent them from escaping, and they're going to go back and do the loop all over again, and things will be different next time. So it was an interesting plan, but it was kind of cool also that Gemma put the bug in his ear, and that's how he ended up losing. Because it's like one of those things where I understand you want to give her a little comeuppance toward her master, so to speak. I mean, it's sort of the Princess Leia thing. It's like the feminists won't complain as long as Princess Leia is the one that gets to strangle Jabba the Hutt, and it's sort of the same thing here. They kind of wanted to have Gemma have some kind of uh, input into his demise. But I'm glad that they did sort of still let Mac have the kill because I can't see. I don't know. I just don't. I don't see. It kind of would have felt anticlimactic if it turned out to be Gemma doing something that killed him. I think. But yeah. So Mac, shotgun axe, Kasius. Need I say more? Okay. So they go through the portal. Uh, Deke and Enoch basically have a suicide mission in order to get them through this portal. Flint makes the portal, of course, with the limestone deposits or whatever that were floating out there in space, and that's the end of the episode. Of course, the coda at the end, the tag was of Flint and Tess, which is nice that they got to survive. But I feel bad for my man Deke. I miss Deke. We're gonna get to him in a second, but there's kind of this this inkling where Tess is kind of giving Flint a model scale of the Earth, a small handheld scale of the Earth, and she says this is your template or your blueprint or whatever she says. But so the idea is like maybe Flint is going to put the whole Earth back together with his powers. That's a big deal, you know what I mean? That's a big chore. Uh, you got your work cut out for you there, kid. But I don't know if that's supposedly what's going to happen in the future. But the future timeline is supposed to be rewritten, I guess, if things are all done as according to plan here, with them going back to the past. So, a lot of rumors are abounding that Deke is Fitzsimmons' child. He's their child in the future, of course. I don't know if I can buy that really because I don't know, he doesn't recognize them, and you would have to say that he was adopted, and I don't know. I don't really see this as a mystery. I thought that his role was pretty much done at this point, but we'll see if they have anything else planned for us. Okay, so the show is going to be on hiatus for a month until the Winter Olympics are over. Everybody's kind of bummed about that, but the show is coming back and they will be in the past, which will bring them into opposition with Dove Cameron, apparently, which I don't know. I'm kind of disappointed because I wanted Dove Cameron to be Gwen Stacy, and I don't know who they're going to make her play in this, but doubtful it's going to be Gwen Stacy. I don't know. So yeah, great episode. This was one of the best episodes of Agents of Shield, and I'm going to give this one the 5-star rating. I'm going to give this one the full 5-star rating. 5 stars for Agents of Shield this week. Okay. All right, let's take a look now at. Let's see. We're going. Let's see. Of course, I'm using the old laptop, so I have to keep fixing this. Okay, let's scale all the way back. Okay, we're gonna do the Flash next. Let's do the Flash. This was a fun episode. I enjoyed this episode. The only thing I don't like about the Flash this week is the lack of the Flash. Another one of those instances where he really isn't a factor in his own show, and that's kind of depressing, really. All right, so we start out with the premise here that Cecile can read minds, and apparently it's due to her pregnancy. Don't know how that works. Kind of nutsy cuckoo there too. Uh, I really liked Harry this episode because we really didn't have an episode that focused on Harry, and I don't know if I'd say this one focuses on him, but he understandably wants Barry out, and he made his voice very well known in this episode, where he pretty much takes the whole team to task, saying, "What is going on here? Why is Barry still in jail? We've got a whole team of superheroes here, and we can't kind of figure something out." All right, so this was pretty funny, I thought. We had Bellows playing cards with Barry in jail. Bellows, of course, was the mayor until he was found out to be corrupt, and now he's playing cards with Barry. He tried to kill Barry, and now he's in jail playing cards with him. So we get some backstory here on Big Sur. Big Sur, of course, being Goldberg. Goldberg shot an unarmed man, and I honestly, I kid you not, was expecting the unarmed man to be Uncle Ben. I thought it was going to be Uncle Ben. I thought this was going to tie into Spider-Man until I remembered, oh, wait a minute, 2 different franchises. But it would have been cool. I think it would have been cool. But really, anyway, it wasn't really him. He didn't really kill him. It was another guy, the new villain, who is a meta with shrinking powers named Dwarf Star, which I don't know how they get that name, Dwarf Star. I guess this character has that name in the comics, but Dwarf Star is the alloy that makes the Atom suit. Now, how they made the connection, I don't know. I might have temporarily got amnesia and missed out where they said that makes something that is a reference to him and his powers, but I don't know how they got that name. So we got a new female mayor, by the way. I thought this was cool. I said to myself, is it going to be Jerry Ryan from Deep Space Nine? Because she tried to run for mayor of Star City. Maybe now she's going to try in Central City. No, it was a different actress. But so Barry wants Big Sur exonerated, and the team tries to help. Big Sur don't want to believe it can happen because that's not what guys want to hear in jail. That we can get you out, and it was very understandable. All right, so as we get a picture of right here, Cisco and Ralph shrink due to the dwarf star powers that he displayed on them. And I thought it was a lot of fun. Their voices were great too. They even had the voice shrinking, voice shrinking gimmick going on there. And they placed them in like a Lego set where they they have like their own little city. That was funny. So Harry tries to zap them back. Oops, didn't work. Gonna blow up. And the only way to zap them back is if they get Dwarf Star to hit him with the same beam that he shot them with the first time. So Harry ends up hiding them in his pocket, and Dwarf Star come like shooting out of his pocket. It was pretty funny for a show without the Flash. It was pretty entertaining. The things I wasn't crazy about was the Joe subplot. It's not really doing anything for me. I'm sick of seeing the therapist. They keep bringing her back. Um, for marriage counseling and stuff. I don't know what the running gag is with that, but I don't know. That's the only thing that kind of I don't know. Didn't work for me. But so they try to get Dwarf Star to confess to Goldberg's crime that he framed Goldberg for, but he won't confess. So Barry decides to speed him out of jail to a little village in China where he said he'd go if he ever got free. And this is what, he kind of had his brain on standby, I guess, when he did this because he didn't figure that anybody would ever figure out that he escaped from jail. I don't know. I thought it was kind of like a little bit, Barry not that stupid, I don't think. So the warden finds out. Now, obviously, the warden appears to be on the take here. He's working for Amnet Black, and he drugs Barry to apparently sell him to Amnet Black in the next episode. So we are going to get some movement here on the Flash side of things, where he's going to apparently be back in action. Um, I don't know. It was a pretty good episode. Not really the greatest. Like I said, I can get where they want to do like episodes without the Flash during this. Everybody probably expected him to just keep phasing out of jail, and that's the typical Flash thing. Even in the original Flash TV show with John Wesley Shipp, that's what happened. He would kind of get out of jail and come back and pretend he was there. And Spider-Man, they did that. He got out of jail and did some Spideying and then came back. That's kind of what everybody's expecting, but they're subverting expectations in that regard. So, I can't really say this is sort of the same old, same old. All right, so I'm going to give this episode. I'm going to give this episode 4 stars out of 5. Yeah, it was fun, especially when you get to see Ralph get stepped on and and look like a couple of rubber bands. It was pretty funny. So I'm going to give it 4 stars out of 5. 4 stars out of 5 for the Flash. And I think this is probably the swan song for Goldberg. I guess he's done with the show now because he's in China. Uh, but I guess that's such is life. All right, so we will move on now. Let us get on to what's the next one we have. Oh boy. Well, let's go to Black Lightning because that's next on my list. I really don't have much to say about that one, so maybe we can get that one out of the way now. Now, I've actually been quite pleased with this show. A little heavy-handed at the beginning, but it really wasn't a problem that made me feel like I was, disenfranchised with the show. I think, they've walked the line pretty successfully. Now, in this episode, though, it's much different here. It's basically the problem I have that it's 90% about Jefferson's Girls and 10% about Black Lightning. That's kind of the unbalanced ratio we had with the Alex Maggie subplot versus Supergirl lead plot. You risk losing the viewer when you've got the hero off doing inconsequential stuff while the side characters' romantic lives are in the focus. And that's pretty much what happens here. The domestic stuff is downright painful. We've got Anissa testing her strength. She ends up like dumping her lesbian girlfriend and going off with a new librarian chick. Um, Jennifer wants to fool around with her boyfriend, and she makes this public knowledge to her parents, leading to another after-school special type feeling vibe for the next, I don't know, half hour of the show. The best part of the show was this image we've got up here, where Black Lightning is testing out a new gauntlet thing that is going to you know, uh, make more precision blasts from his lightning throwing abilities. Gamble, I think, made is that his name? Gamble. He's still a really fun character on the show too. I'm glad they showed him. So let's see. That was probably the best part of the episode. He's only in the episode once, basically. Black Lightning, apart from this testing scene, he's at the very end. Now, Tobias is working for Lady Eve, which I don't know if that's just an alliance or is he just a patsy for her. I don't know how that works. But, they're trying to make Tobias the most reprehensible character in any of the shows. He apparently says racist things, and he's, pretty much just a despicable character. And he's like the only prominent white character on the show. It does have to be mentioned, because I'm not really like that. I don't consider myself concerned with representation. I mean, if you have a show where um, one of the episodes or one of the main overall season villains is black, I don't think, well, that's bad representation because the main black character in the show is a villain. So I'm not going to play that card here, but it does have to be mentioned that he's getting a lot of screen time and he's really a reprehensible character. Maybe they could give Gamble a little more time and try to balance that. Maybe I don't know, but like I said, that's not my main concern. We got some name drops. Supergirl gets name dropped. The Outsiders gets name dropped. So anyhow, Black Lightning ends up saving the pastor of a church that is leading a march from uh, Wales gunmen. And like I said, it's very brief action, not a whole lot with Black Lightning. Whale now knows that Black Lightning is back, and he wants to kill Black Lightning again. So, again, like I said, there's not much to this episode. Kind of boring. Not really up to snuff in any regard. I think the gauntlet scene here, that the image, I think that was the best scene. I'm going to give it half a star for that. So, 1/2 star for Black Lightning this week. All right, so we'll just move on here now. Next up, let's go to this was an enjoyable episode. Let's see if I can get the image. We've got Arrow. Oh, yes. Arrow with Black Canary. Black Canary finally getting her due a bit on the show. Because Black Canary is an iconic character, and I can't believe they waited so long really to do something proactive with her. Because I know they tried with Katie Cassidy, and they had a proto Canary with Sarah, but for some reason, it's basically the Elicity fans that keep wanting to nullify Black Canary's role. But now the Black Canary in this show is basically at odds with Green Arrow, and there's no romantic tension whatsoever because Green Arrow's a married man. Maybe now they can finally just let Black Canary flourish and not fear, riling the Elicity fans, because the Elicity fans must be noted that they are very, I don't want to say out of their minds, but out of their minds. Yeah, basically. They give death threats to, I think they gave death threats to Amel's wife. They gave death threats to Katie Cassidy because, you know, both of them are with him. I mean, Amel's personal life, you're going to do that? I mean, it's crazy, crazy stuff. You can't deny that it's happened. But that's why a lot of fans are kind of turned off to Elicity too, is because the Elicity shippers are often quite unhinged. So, well, let's move on. So Oliver's still paying Caden James, 10 million a day as he requested, and he's back city, probably the state, because I don't know if a city has more than a couple of $1 million. I mean, yeah, maybe I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know how many. What does the city run on? $70 million, and in a week, you think he'd be bankrupt? I don't know. So we get some flashbacks in this episode to Vince and Dinah's meeting in Central City, and leading up to that whole thing where her origin and how she was, basically ratted out by, she was discovered, so to speak, and then ended up um, going to be getting worked over, and then Vince uh, ends up about to get killed, but he doesn't get killed because when the particle accelerator goes off, he gets the healing powers that he has now, which looked very Wolverine-ish in this episode, I might add. So that's basically all the flashbacks in this episode. It was fun. I enjoyed it. I liked seeing the origin of these two because they really didn't let this play as long as it should have. I think we should have seen more over the course of the season. I mean, to get us on the same page, that this relationship has, meaning to us anyway, because, we really only get this in the last 3 or 4 episodes. So, Caden James suspects a rat. He thinks somebody's ratting on them, and, Vigilante's kind of got to watch himself. Dinah and her team trust Vigilante to continue to work with him, but eh, Oliver and company are not quite as trusting. So Vigilante elects to go on a suicide mission. Oliver doesn't trust him, but Vigilante doesn't care. He's going to do it anyway. Renee's still acting like he doesn't want to reconcile. I mean, come on, Haas, get off your high horse. He keeps driving me crazy every time he says, like, he's got a reason to be so offended. He was the one that ratted out Oliver. Now Oliver was acting like a jerk when he kind of wanted this team to uh, disband, so to speak, but that doesn't really mean that every single time they cross paths that Renee still has to act like we're not working together. I ain't working with you. This ain't gonna change things. I mean, come on, Renee. Take the stick out, for crying out loud. Okay, so meanwhile we have the subplot of Quentin, and he tells Thea that Black Siren is following him, and following him in secret, and he wants to confront her, but in a delicate fashion to try to reach her, which this, like I said, is another subplot that really should get some more attention. It hasn't gotten much attention, but we'll get back to that in a minute. But just the seeds are planted for a big meeting between them two. Now, Vigilante is caught by James trying to copy the data, but he bluffs his way out of it. Uh, Now we find out in the flashback that Dinah didn't want uh, to pull out of the undercover mission they were on, and now it's like the other way around. I thought that was a pretty cool reversal, so I had to mention that. Anatoly and James capture a vigilante and have him tortured. Of course, he's vigilante, and he's not going to be in serious injury. Although I don't know to what extent that healing lasts, because if you cut off his hands or something, I don't think they're going to grow back. I don't know if that's Wolverine level healing powers that he has, but we really don't ever find out. So Ollie says that they can't rescue Vigilante from being tortured and find the bomb that Caden James is priming in the Dark Knight Rises fashion at the same time. They need the whole team to try to find the bomb, or they can go and find Vigilante and lose the opportunity to get the bomb. Now, Dinah goes to save Vigilante, but Renee and Curtis decide to go with her and not, they want to play loyalty there and not help Green Arrow and his team. So it's up to Green Arrow and Spartan to find the bomb, and it's a really good action scene. They always do great action here on Green Arrow, and he's goes through the place. It's a big complex that he can't find it because with just the two of them they can't find it. So he goes off and tries to find the bomb, but several trucks disperse at the same time with different guys trying to prevent him from following even one of them, and he completely loses the thread on where to find the bomb. So it really was cool that it turned out that way, that it wasn't, they weren't just paying lip service to the fact that Oliver needed the team. He needed help, and he couldn't do it alone, and he couldn't do it. Now, meanwhile, a bomb goes off in the rescue mission, the attempt to save Vigilante, and Black Canary gets captured under a beam, uh, you know, a, a a post of wood, and meanwhile, Vigilante gets impaled, and Caden James orders his execution via Black Siren. Now, the thing that bothered me about this scene was Black Canary has like this beam pinning her down. Why couldn't she use her canary cry to push the beam off her? They tried to have the beam positioned where it was like pretty much under her chin, where she couldn't like focus on it to push it off. But I kind of felt that I don't know. I didn't think that was as convincing as it could have been. If they wanted to prove to us that she was completely immobile and couldn't save herself and couldn't save um, Vince, then they probably should have positioned it a little bit differently. I don't know. That was just my opinion of it. I'm not sure. So uh, before this, Quentin does confront Black Siren, and they have a nice scene where they have the images of Laurel and both her and Sarah on the background of a screen, and the image of Laurel as Black Canary goes over Black Siren's face, and it's a very poignant scene, and you can really feel for Quentin that he wants to make this connection with Black Siren, but she doesn't have any of it, and she takes a run out powder, and it leads to a nice scene between Quentin and Thea. That's always been one of my favorite relationships on the show, is between Quentin and Thea. That's sort of like, he's sort of in need of a daughter now, and she's in need of a father figure, and they really work good together. And I'm going to feel bad if one or both in the show, because they really do provide some of the most poignant moments. So now, having known that has just happened, now Black Siren kills Vigilante by giving a canary cry. I don't know if they call it a canary cry in Black Siren's case. What, a siren scream, maybe? Directly into his ear, and pretty much just draining the life out of him. So, you have the situation now where it looks like Black Siren's irredeemable. Now, I kind of was holding out hope maybe she'd be redeemed, but this is like a Kylo Ren situation where I don't know how you redeem Kylo Ren after he kills Han Solo. You know what I mean? Not too many people are really going to want to, give him a second chance. And the same here now, where I don't know, that's kind of a real bridge to cross, that I don't know if they can bring her back after that. That is like premeditated murder. You know what I mean? So it's going to be interesting to see how they play with this storyline going on. Now, of course, Black Canary is on the warpath, and she wants revenge. It's a vendetta between the two siren screams, the canary cry and the siren scream, because, of course, she was in love with Vince, who apparently turned out to be a good guy at the end of it all. I still say this was the most convoluted way of dealing with the situation. Unfortunately, a cruel fate conspired to not have Colin Donnell available, because he should have played Vigilante. That role was perfect for him. And, in a very Red Hood type situation. But they made it Vince, and I don't really know how that really works out, because, like I said, on the one hand, he's killing gangsters and criminals left and right. Then he's working for gangsters and criminals. Then he's really undercover as a cop. You know, it doesn't really add up. It doesn't really line up very well. I don't really know what it was. One of those things that I was saying before when we are talking about Supergirl, that they kind of didn't connect the dots. What they did was they had an idea, and when it didn't kind of pan out the way they were thinking, they just switched gears and did something else. And when you do that, sometimes it works, and most of the time it don't. And I don't know if it really made a lot of sense doing that here. But like I said, I'm glad they're giving Black Canary a good amount of focus now, giving her something to do. She's kind of on the warpath with Green Arrow, which I still want to see the team get back together. I don't want this bad blood, so to speak, to continue on. Band-aids don't fix bullet holes, as Taylor Swift once very acutely said. All right, so this was a good episode. I'm going to give this episode of The Arrow, I'm going to give this one, gee, I don't know. I'm going to say, should I give it a full 5 stars? I don't know. I don't know if it's worthy of that. I'm going to say, yeah, I'm going to give it full 5 stars. All right, 5 stars for this episode of Arrow. I enjoyed it a lot. I like seeing Black Canary get a good focus. I like seeing Anatoly. I like seeing Oliver in costume, which he hasn't been enough. So that is 5 stars for Green Arrow this week. It's between this one and Agents of Shield, which was the best episode. But I'm going to give Agents of Shield the best episode of the season of the week for that slam bang finish in the past. I mean, the future. I'm getting confused. I don't know. All right. Thankfully, we've got one more episode to chronicle here. We've gone about an hour. We've gone a little bit longer than I thought we were going to go, but we also had other business in the beginning of the show, so we're not going too far overtime. Okay, we've got Spotlight on Macgyver, and this, of course, is the triumphant return of Michael Des Barres, who played the original Murdoc in the original show. And we saved this one for last because of that monumentous occasion. Uh, so the show starts off here. We've got the gang playing charades. Obviously, Macgyver is too literal to play charades. He's just not good at it. And they're doing the sort of build up where they want, where Riley wants Jack to rekindle things with her mother, and they do sort of like a parent trap joke, which is pretty funny. And again, I don't really know if I care too much about Jack, being like a stepfather to Riley. I never liked that plot line. That kind of doesn't work for me. I don't know. They kind of keep going back to it, but I think Jack went better with the girl that was in last week's episode, the con artist, Amy Smart, I think her name was. He went better with her, and I think they should go back to that. But anyhow, so Anthony Stark, if you remember Anthony, he was the ghost in the original Flash TV show, and he's been on before on Macgyver. He makes a return here, and a welcome return because I like him. I think they could do a lot with him if they, play their cards right and try to come up with an interesting storyline for him because he's a good bad guy. He's very charismatic, and I think they are wasting him. We'll get to that in a moment because his fate, his future is in question in the show. We'll get to that later. But anyhow, Anthony Stark returns. I can't remember his character's name in the show. Fleischer, I think it is. All right, so Fleischer returns to Macgyver's home, and he sets up a deal where he is going to hand him Murdoc, the younger Murdoc, the David Dalmasterson version, for $10 million and a chance to escape. Now they kind of have to mull this over, the team Macgyver, and I think Maddie, I guess, is the one that makes the decision to actually go with this plan. So they go through this plan. They bring the 10 mil to Stark, and he hands over Murdoc in handcuffs, which is the name of the episode, Murdoc in handcuffs. Now, as they're trying to escape, their escape copter is blown up, and pursuing them with bad intentions is the original Murdoc. I can't refer to him as anything but Murdoc, but they build this episode as Murdoc versus Murdoc, but they don't really call him Murdoc in this episode. The original Murdoc, Michael Des Barres. So most of the episode is really revolved around them fleeing from Murdoch, the original Murdoch. They flee on foot, they steal a car, they hop a freight train. Basically, they just keep running away from him, and it basically serves to sort of, get the relationship between Murdoch and, Murdoch Jr., so to speak, and MacGyver closer together. They have these, intimate moments, so to speak, where Murdoch is questioning him about his father and what's the situation there, and Murdoch lies about his past, and MacGyver tries to lie about the situation between him and his father. It's very interesting stuff to see the character stuff they're bringing to these two. It's it's like some of the best stuff from the original MacGyver Murdoch confrontation was when they could get personal with each other in moments like that, and I like the way they brought that back. But it is kind of disappointing that Michael Des Barres doesn't really have a role on the show other than just being an enforcer. He's just the, MacGuffin, so to speak, that's keeping the plot moving, and he's just chasing them and chasing them. And he doesn't even confront MacGyver. He doesn't really confront Murdoch. He has one confrontation of dialogue between him and Maddie, where he names Murdoch Jr., so to speak, as Dennis. And, that's interesting, giving us a crumb of his history because no one knew the history of the real Murdoch anyway in the original show. But there's no interaction between the Michael Des Barres Murdoch and any of the other cast besides this one brief scene with Maddie, where he basically gives her an ultimatum. The usual ultimatum, which is basically, give me what I want and none of your friends will get killed. He just wants Murdoch. He's not interested in MacGyver at this point, which we don't hear the classic MacGyver. And none of the Murdoch tropes were really there apart from Michael Des Barres just being Michael Des Barres. And he really did capture the essence of Murdoch in the limited amount of screen time he was offered. So Murdoch Jr., the David Del Masterson Murdoch, it's just faster to say Murdoch Jr. Murdoch Jr. Gives the backstory, and he says that Murdoch, the original Murdoch's real name is Nicholas Helmont, and that he was his mentor, and he learned all about, killing basically from him because the U.S. Army didn't want him because he didn't pass his psych evaluations, and that the government or organization that employed them both wanted Murdoch Jr. to kill Murdoch Sr. because Murdoch Sr. decided to retire and get married. And when Murdoch Jr. attempted to kill him, he failed and he killed his wife, Murdoch Sr.'s wife, the original Murdoch's wife. So that is what's putting them at odds. Now, it's interesting because I would think that this would be great groundwork for Murdoch Jr. and Murdoch to join forces because MacGyver wouldn't stand a chance. I actually suggested that on Twitter, and not only did Michael Des Barres like the tweet, but David Del Masterson and the producer of MacGyver as well. So hopefully that's something that's in the works. Now, the thing that's disappointing the most in the episode is that Murdoch gets shot dead. The original Murdoch gets shot dead with a couple of bullets by Murdoch Jr. Now, this is not the same way that Murdoch usually dies because he dies in almost every episode where, he's appeared dead and he's gotten out of worse scrapes than this, falling off of mountains and being electrocuted and drowned and falling down a mine shaft, just to name a few. Having a building fall on him was another famous one. But being shot twice and having the body lie there just is very, I don't know what they're trying to say there. But on Twitter, Michael Des Barres is adamantly saying, keep watching, that there's more to come. So obviously, this is just an appetizer. And they do have big plans for Michael Des Barres in the future to return as Murdoch Sr., or whatever they're going to, want to designate him as. I hope he's called Murdoch because David L. Masterson's Murdoch said that he killed the man and took his name that was originally Murdoch. So I would like to think that this is the man, but he said he didn't kill him. Maybe he didn't know he didn't kill him because he killed his wife. I mean, by accident. I don't know. We'll just see if maybe these two can mend fences, and hopefully we can get Richard Dean Anderson on the show. We could really have a full MacGyver and MacGyver versus Murdoch and Murdoch hootenanny. That would be something. That would be exciting. So yeah, so Murdoch he gets on handcuffed by MacGyver, and they kind of play it like the worst idea ever, but to be honest, I don't understand, Murdoch really wasn't helpless with the handcuffs on. I mean, he still had no leg restraints. He was going to run if he was going to run. So, I don't know, but he ends up stealing one of the original Murdoch's victims' gun, a policeman's gun that was dead in the back seat. And that's how he puts down the original Murdoch temporarily. Temporarily. So, Murdoch is captured, goes back to prison quietly, and uh, he has like one request for going to jail quietly, and it's to be able to see his son again. Apparently, he killed his son's mother. That's why he's not ashamed to have killed Murdoch's wife. And so Murdoch sees his son and abducts him by killing his way out with a crayon sharpener. Only Murdoch could do this. Only Murdoch. And at the end of the episode, he confronts Stark and apparently is going to kill Stark. Maybe they could have some kind of out with that because we really didn't see him kill him. Maybe he's just going to hold him for some kind of purpose to draw out somebody else or something. I don't know. But yeah, overall, episode of MacGyver, I'm going to give this one 4.5 stars out of 5. I, like I said, kind of disappointed that they couldn't give Murdoch more to do, but I'm always the one that says you got to lay the groundwork. You can't just go in with the barrels blazing. You have to lay the groundwork, and I can understand that if they build on this, it'll be fine. That's kind of like what happened. It's one of those things that it's like the Last Jedi was so underwhelming because the Force Awakens laid a groundwork that even if you didn't like the Force Awakens that much, they set the stage for onward and upward. And in the same way here, you know, the stage is set. A better episode will make this episode look a lot better, but on its own, it's pretty good. So I'm gonna give this one 4 stars, 4.5 stars out of 5. 4.5 stars out of 5 for this week's MacGyver. Murdoch Returns. Okay, so thank you once again for joining me here for This Week in Comic Book TV. Johnny Torch Live number 50. Can you believe that? We're on number 50 now. 50 live shows in the books. And we will be back with you next Saturday for This Week in Comic Book Television, the only way to spend your Saturday here with us on Johnny Torch Live. And we will probably do a Torch News roundup sometime early next week. Not sure when. It depends on the amount of news stories that are out. That's what kind of makes it always a different day. It's easy for me to schedule a comic book television review on Saturday because all the shows are in the can. But for the Torch News roundup, it depends how many stories I've got to work with to talk about. All right, so thank you once again for joining me. Make sure you check out the link in the description to vote on this week's Poll of the Week question. Make sure you check out the Adventures of Bullets Bourbon Comics in the link in the description below for my website. Make sure you hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, and share this video like there's no tomorrow. There is no tomorrow. Share this video today. And we will see you back next week at our regularly scheduled time. This is Johnny Torch reminding you once again, keep that flame burning brightly, and I'll be with you again real soon.